Welcome to the Redhead and the Bearded Beauty. I'm the Redhead.
And I am the Bearded Beauty.
And this is our weekly podcast about all things city government, the thing that you look forward to all week.
Yes, people love hearing city government news and
they love
updates.
Mm-hmm,
so,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that's the first thing I get asked about anywhere I go.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I do get asked at most just all the time about city stuff or like how to do things. And there's a lot of that.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
People like, oh, you work for the city? That's interesting. No, it kind of dies right there. But
I don't know. In my friend group, they're like, what about this person? Or asking about like how to do things. Like how do you report potholes or whatever? So
yeah. So I know Nolan, our videographer,
mm-hmm.
he was telling us today that his mother-in-law said, you work for the county.
Yeah.
So.
People don't know that we have a difference. There is this overlap. And I mean, there's no reason to know the difference unless you work for government. Like,
yeah.
So I don't fault people, but, you know, people think that the school system, the state, the county, and the city all kind of have the same functionality or, you know, don't know the division. So it's a lot of education that we have to do.
You know, that's one of the most frequent comments I see on social is, why don't you guys put more money into the schools?
I know, yeah. We get that a whole lot.
Yeah, like,
and,
well, that's kind of separate.
Or during election season, like last night with the election. And so we get a lot of election questions too. Just like why you're about this poll or this poll, and that's the county. So
yeah, but we still send people to the correct location where they can get that information.
Yeah,
so
we do. Just like on our, you know, if you report on Access Wichita potholes and things, there's also, you can report streetlights that are out. Now, while we handle streetlights like that you might see like in Old Town, but the streetlights that you see just on your neighborhood streets or lighting up the streets, that's Evergy, but we still, you can report those and we feed it to their system.
We have Evergy go out and fix the problem. So no more K-State purple lights down my street. So those have been fixed.
I liked the purple lights.
They were pretty cool looking. So
I liked them. And you know who fixes those?
Who fixes those?
Shanna Appelhans's husband.
Oh, really?
Yes. He was one of the people who went out there and fixed them. So shout out to him for getting rid of the purple lights.
Yes, thank you. That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yes. So he's probably going to be embarrassed.
So we were talking last week if we had introduced ourselves on the podcast in any of the shows.
Yeah, we didn't.
And we never really took a chance to introduce who we are. We talked a little bit about what we do with the city. Mm-hmm. So I know you love talking about yourself.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing. I love birthdays and talking about myself and being on camera.
Yes. So when's your birthday?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay. And what are things you like to do?
I like my dogs, and I talk about my dogs a lot. Jason and I like to go out to eat. We're very passionate about chips and queso.
Yes, chips and queso, very good.
Chips and queso. I don't know what else you need to know about a person other than they have dogs and they like chips and queso.
That's it.
I mean, that pretty much summarizes everything.
Mic drop. Let's go.
Mic drop. Let's go. Yeah.
So yeah.
What about you? What are some things about you?
What are things about me that you would like to know?
Things about Tyler.
Well, I am married. My wife, Jeanette. Mm-hmm. I've got 2 daughters and
who are
another.
in the studio today.
They are in the studio with us.
They're waiting.
Yes, it's been kind of distracting to kind of keep them in line while also, doing this. So
it's pretty funny.
Yeah, but no. My 2 daughters are here with us, and then Jeanette is pregnant with our 3rd, and we are not going to find out.
That is pretty cool.
If it's a boy or a girl until,
But do you guys have, I mean, maybe this is too personal. You don't have to answer this, but do you guys have names picked out?
We do have names picked out.
That's great.
But maybe what we ought to do is see if anybody on here wants to email us at social@wichita.gov and try to guess what the name is, and we can read those off on the show.
Do they win something if they guess right? We
could probably come up with something for them to win. We could. My daughter's yelling Chick-fil-A in the background.
I want Chick-fil-A.
Now I'm getting hungry.
Yeah.
No, but I'm sure we could probably work out something with the Parks Department to get some passes to something, or we'll come up with something if someone can guess what the name is.
Yeah, if you guess what the name is.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. Like Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay.
Just have people email in to social@wichita.gov what you think the baby's name is going to be, boy and girl name. Give us 2 names.
You get to guess 2 names.
You get to guess 2 names.
Okay. That's awesome. I'm going to do it.
What do you think?
I don't know yet. I have to think about it. I'm going to think about it. This is a big decision, but I'm really excited.
We have a few podcasts between now and then, so.
But not that many, really.
Yeah, September 21st is when she's due.
Exciting.
So I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
Kind of our two girls' names, if that helps you figure out the direction we're going.
Mm-hmm.
So our 9-year-old is Charlotte.
Oh, yeah.
And our 7-year-old is Celia.
So I'm guessing a C name.
Maybe.
Okay.
But if that provides any context and help into our style and what we're going after.
Okay.
So, but I'm going to try not to give anything away right here because we haven't told anybody. We haven't even told my parents, Jeanette's parents. We haven't told anybody what the names are.
You can't tell people names.
No.
Like it's great if you're like deciding. But yeah, just don't tell anyone because then they're like, oh, I knew an X person in school and they did this, and then you're always thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
But I do have an embarrassing story for me, and I'll embarrass my daughter while I'm here too. So our first, when Jeanette was pregnant, we were in the hospital. We didn't find out with her, and the doctor delivers her. He's like, all right, Dad, you call it. And in my head, I thought we had a boy. I was so convinced, and I'm like, it's a boy. And I hear cheering from all the nurses, and also, nope. It's a girl. So, yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. But in my head, I thought it was a boy, and so I was glossed over and didn't see a thing. So, that's my embarrassing story for the day. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. I think we ought to move on to our interview.
Yeah, let's do it.
Today we have Kaylin Nethercott with Metropolitan Area Building and Construction, or MABCD. Man, that's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
She's going to be talking to us about the dangerous and unsafe structures and the removal of those, or working to get those back in order. So
yeah,
we're going to take a break, and we're going to bring in Kaylin, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We are now joined by Kaylin Nethercott with the Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department. Kaylin, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off by tell us a little bit about what you do with the department.
In MABCD, I'm the Neighborhood Inspection Administrator, so I oversee the division that's responsible for removal of dangerous and unsafe structures, among other things. We also take care of residential housing enforcement, neighborhood nuisance enforcement, including tall grass and weeds and inoperable vehicles. We oversee illegal dumping on private properties, and then some light residential zoning, not the really heavy-duty stuff. But it's enough that it keeps us really, really busy.
No, you're not just a city department. You also are a Sedgwick County department. Is that right?
That's a good question. Neighborhood inspection is a city division housed in a county-managed department. So the services that MABCD offers outside of neighborhood inspection include building permits and licensing, contractor licensing. There's plans review. There's floodplain management. There's water and wastewater management. Those services are county-wide, but we're a little unique in that our department is all city employees, and we only service the needs within the city limits.
That's wild. I think even I didn't understand that it was that niche. I knew that some of it was city, but that is very specific.
It's a fairly unique governmental structure. You don't see that many that are merged in that way with the departmental services of that kind. I think Johnson County has another model that's very similar to this, the Unified Government of Wyandotte County also. So there's a couple more out there in Kansas that are kind of groundbreaking in that way.
So tell us a little bit about who you are outside of work. We like to get to know the different employees here and who they are, not just at the city, but their personal life. Who is Kaylin when you're not here at the city?
Well, when I'm not here, I have several things I love to do. I do work a part-time job somewhere else, and I love to do that. It gives me a different focus than the city. I'm married to Stoney Nethercott, who's the mechanical administrator in MABCD and has been for many, many years. Our son Spencer just graduated from college from Kansas State University in May. So he's moved back home with us and just started a new job today. You're most likely going to find me watching sports or cooking or communicating with my family in Arkansas because most of my family is there. So, yeah.
And that's awesome that you work with your husband, too.
That's an unusual thing.
I love it.
We're pretty segmented because he's firmly enmeshed in the building and trade side, which really has to do more with the built environment. And then I'm in the code enforcement side for nuisance and housing concerns. So it's very different, but same department.
Very good.
Yeah.
So you were saying sports. So what sports? That kind of caught my attention.
Well, baseball is probably my favorite. My son played for many years, played competitively in high school and then even committed to Friends to pitch. He's a big left-handed kid. So we followed competitive baseball for years. That's my first love. I love basketball also because, Razorbacks, Razorback basketball, and then football as well. We dabble in golf. I've got a nephew that's going to Washburn on a golf scholarship, and so we're pretty much a sporty family. We like the sports. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So, all right, we like to play a little game on the show called Two Truths and a Lie.
Mm-hmm.
So did you come with your two truths and a lie?
I sure did.
All right.
All right. So I mentioned I have family in Arkansas. So when I was in high school, I was elected to serve as the state president of Future Homemakers of America.
That's cool, if it's the truth.
I'll give you another one so you can decide what's a truth and a lie.
Okay.
So my educational background includes that of a Juris Doctorate because I found that having a law background does help very much with property rights and the kind of work that I do with neighborhood inspection. And then the third one is I mentioned that my son played baseball, and so I kept score for many years and can write or by symbol designate the 9 ways a batter can reach first base. I'll let you all decide.
Huh. That last one sounds very specific. Well, they all sounded very specific.
Yeah, they did.
So that's kind of hard to break those apart. My daughter's in here. They're at work with me today, and she's signaling number 3. But I'm going to have to go with the first one as the lie.
So was the first one the serving as state president of Future Homemakers of America? Mm-hmm. That's actually true.
That is true.
That is true.
I'm going to go with Tyler's daughter then. Is it number 3?
Was that the
baseball?
The baseball.
That is also true.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm an adept scorekeeper, but I am not an attorney.
Oh.
So my educational background is I have a degree in economics. I have a master's in business administration and then 10 hours toward a doctorate in higher education administration because that's so useful in public service, right? But I have to tell you why I picked that as my lie. Because, and I'm going to, a gentle shout out to Mayor Whipple. In yesterday's council meeting, he asked me to comment on a citizen situation. He said, because Kaylin, you're an attorney, right? You've been to law school.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I had to say how honored I was that he thought that. And then I had to apologize to Jennifer Magana, who did a great job of maintaining a straight face, because I'm sure that I would drive her crazy. So
now I feel bad because I should have gotten that right because I remember seeing that.
You said it with such confidence.
Yes.
Well, yes, I've been practicing. I've got my poker face on here.
I like it. I like it.
You want to go next?
Yeah. So it is almost the 100th anniversary of the Orpheum in Wichita. Mm-hmm. They were built in September 1922. That's my first fact. The second fact is that it was the first atmospheric theater built in the United States. And my third fact is that it was built to show talkies.
What are talkies?
Talkies are like the first films that had talking with them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Not like a Wookiee.
Not like a Wookiee sort of weird thing. Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm going to go with number 1. I think it's older than 100 years old.
Okay.
I'm going to go with the talkies because I feel like it was probably built as like an onstage performing show.
You are right. It was built right before the talkies. It was built for vaudeville.
Oh,
so
very
yeah.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it really 100 years?
It's 100 years in
Oh my
September. Yeah,
gosh.
I know. If you haven't been to the Orpheum or you haven't checked out their celebrations, be sure to do that. So it should be really neat.
I noticed they've been doing some upgrading to the outside of their building.
Yes.
So That's
Yeah.
the building person in me seeing that, of course.
I know. I love the Orpheum. It's so gorgeous.
Yes,
Yes.
honestly, I've never been to a show there. I don't know how long I've lived in Wichita, but yeah, that's on my bucket list of things to do in Wichita. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, all the things that, Star Wars and now the Orpheum. So, all right. I was at both first events for Intrust Bank Arena and Riverfront Stadium. Jeanette and I met in Kansas City, and I once dressed up as a Teletubby for Halloween.
Oh, I believe the Teletubby one.
Yeah, that's.
I don't think you and Jeanette met in Kansas City.
You don't think so?
No.
How about you?
That's. I would agree with that. I think that's your lie.
Yeah, that's my lie. We met here in Wichita.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right.
So, all right, moving on. So, I'm not very good at this whole lying thing.
He's
It's
not.
like
Apparently
everybody
I
figures
am.
that out
My
every
goodness.
week, so. All right, Kaylin. So, this last Tuesday, you had several items: repair or removal of dangerous and unsafe structures on the council agenda. We get those from time to time.
We do.
So, just tell us a little bit about what that is, why those items come up at council.
Sure thing. So when houses are in disrepair at that level, neglect and disrepair, or sometimes it's fire or natural disaster that got them to that phase, if we receive enough complaints, we'll start housing cases on them, and we'll work at those at the staff level to try to bring them into compliance. And that can be restore the exterior of it. It can be shore up the structural deficiencies, because usually they're structurally unsound when they get to that point. So if a housing case is unsuccessful, if we use all the tools available to us at that level, then our inspectors will recommend that those be considered for demolition and removal, repair and removal of unsafe structures. It's a lengthy process, and it requires, the first step is the Board of Code Standards and Appeals. You'll hear us talk about the property was first heard at this BCSA meeting or that BCSA meeting. And at that point, that board, which is made up primarily of architects and contractors, they independently look at the information that we present and then make a determination whether it should be moved forward to the city council for consideration. If that happens, then these public hearings where you see us present at the podium are the result of that. Now they can make all kinds of other recommendations as well. They can give extensions of time if it's in the if the property is being sold. They can give extensions of time if the owner is going to remove it on their own. So it's not a true linear process, because you may start it and then you kind of stop and wait and you do some other things. But the public hearing before the city council is the second opportunity that the citizens have to talk about that property and what their intent is with it. So
now, I was talking with some of the city council members yesterday, and they were talking how this process over the years has kind of changed, where it's before some of these cases, by the time they got to the council, it had been 4, 5, 6, 7 years that they've been in the system trying to get it resolved.
Yeah.
Now, and they were more likely to take action, at that council meeting. It's like it's been in there this long.
Yeah.
So now it's like I noticed there were several yesterday that they gave extensions on or gave homeowners more opportunity. Can you talk about how that process has changed?
I can. And, it was an interesting progression. When I first started, which was about 4 years ago, I've only been in this position about 4 years, we had a backlog of houses that were not being moved forward into that formal condemnation process. And we were doing that because, obviously there's a finite amount of budget that you have to work with. And so what we would do is we would hold those artificially out of the process to kind of manage the budget outside of the formal process. Well, what we were doing is we neighborhood inspection, were artificially masking the demand for demolition, right? Because it is an option of last resort, but it is a very effective way to deal with blight in a neighborhood. So in February of 2020, we did a workshop with the city council. And I was like, I don't want to do a workshop. I just don't want to do that. I just don't think we're going to find a way to really improve this process. And I was wrong. We worked with Denise Peters, who's a process specialist. We unpacked it. We figured out where those delays actually were. And with city council's blessings, we now influx those problem properties that are at that point into the process as soon as we get them. Well, magically, this is what I'm just like, well, we should have done this a long time ago, but we didn't. About 50% of the time, the process results in an outcome that is not demolition by the city. So what we found is the process works really well. It's very effective at resolving these problem properties. And I don't know whether that's the accountability of meeting with the Board of Code Standards and Appeals, if it's the pressure of coming before City Council and having to explain why you've taken the actions you have or you haven't done anything, but people get more interested in reaching a resolution and getting properties into compliance. Unlike other processes that can kind of drag on for that 4 and 5 and 10 years, man, condemnation has a start and it has an end. We're going to get to an outcome, and oftentimes it's a very positive one. So that's a real difference. That was a council suggestion at the worktop. I have to give a shout out to Becky Tuttle. She said, Kaylin, you actually make condemnations interesting, because I get so excited about it when we unpack that process and we find ways to improve it. And it doesn't diminish the citizen's right at all. It just means we're working at it a little bit more deliberately and a little bit more consciously for a start and end. Those types of houses that are vacant, boarded up, dumped on, overgrown, can be great sources of frustration for neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And so when we can get those successfully resolved and successfully brought into compliance, that's a win for everybody.
You talked about how difficult it is to get to that point, and the length of time it takes, and that's really purposeful to give the property a chance to come back into service.
Yes, we really want the owners or the prospective owners, as the case may be. You saw that with one yesterday, that it changed hands in the process. We really want to give them every opportunity to take care of it on their own. I mean, demolition is a last resort. I mean, it is just not the first option. But sometimes you have to get close to that point to get it resolved. So yeah, I mean, the citizens we have lots of interaction with them. We're accessible. They can call us. They communicate through their council members, through their CSRs. We're happy to meet with them on site. Whatever they have questions about, we're pretty open to those kinds of conversations, especially in the demolition process.
What happens in those cases that we do have to move to demolition? What happens to that property?
I'm glad you asked. There's a common misconception that if the city demos a house or demos a property, tears down a house, that we somehow own the land, and we do not. The owner retains ownership of the land. Now, what does happen is that the cost associated with that demolition and removal are then assessed against the property as a special assessment. So the owner does get the debt, but they get rid of the problem. But they still have full ownership and can sell the lot. They can rebuild. They can do whatever they want to do with that.
Now,
was that kind of what you were asking?
Yeah, very much.
Now, some of these houses, it's not as simple as someone's living there. Most times they're not living there, and even in some cases, the property owner may have died or lives out of state, or the people who inherited it live out of state, and so that hinders the process as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. We will never actively condemn an occupied property. The only exception I would say is if it's been catastrophically damaged by fire, it's unlivable, and it's a danger. And then we'll do an emergency demolition in those instances. The fire department is great. They take care of many of those structure fires to the point where a simple secure is all that's needed, but not all of them. Every now and again, there's one that will just simply require emergency demo. So those other properties, I'm glad you mentioned that. As you saw yesterday, we had 2 sets of citizens that were at the podium that were the relatives of deceased owners. And what happens is if there's not a will that directly assigns the ownership of that property, it has to go through a process called probate. Or in one instance, it was a determination of descent. Best case scenario, if there is a relative involved that can do that process, that's about 9 to 11 months. I mean, it's not a quick process at all, but it's the best process to let them retain some type of ownership with that property. But again, they get not only the property, they get the problems. So it doesn't take something out of condemnation consideration just because we don't have an active owner involved. We'll kind of run those processes concurrently if we need to. Now, the out-of-state ownership, that's a problem. It is a problem because you can't really take them to court. You're not going to get court action that's effective. Oftentimes, they're just not interested in having anything to do with the property. So we kind of look for some other signs. Disrepair is one. Delinquent property taxes is another. If someone's not escrowing and paying those, that's an indication that it's kind of not going to be tended to. So we look at ways, particularly to assist those people that have probate issues. but we know that there's not a whole lot we can do on those properties that have out-of-state owners. Okay.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of conversation. We've been to neighborhood association meetings. We've been to a couple of dabs and different things. And the citizens in these neighborhoods have really keyed in on the fact that additional resources like that to assist with probate and to help people work through property ownership issues. I mean, why would you know that? I mean, why would you know how to hire a probate attorney and how that process would look? You know, most people don't.
Yeah.
The best we can do right now is suggest Kansas Legal Services or the Wichita Bar Association for them, but we don't have any resources like financial resources to offer them. We don't have any pro bono work from attorneys or real estate agents that are involved. And those are all ideas that have been bandied about as good solutions. So,
now, these houses are not something we're just actively going out looking for. Hey, we don't like that house the way it looks. Take it down. These are have had complaints on them, and and we want to respect the homeowner and their property. But at the same time, with some of these houses, tell us what you're looking for when it's considering it to be a dangerous and unsafe structure.
Yeah,
and also the importance of helping the residents in the area as well.
You know, it's sometimes whether we like it or not, those vacant structures, in spite of our best efforts to keep them secured and to keep them, and oftentimes we'll mow. I mean, that's going to accrue costs against them, but they become magnets for less than stellar activity. Winter months, people are looking for places to stay warm. There's some illegal activity that kind of goes along with vacant properties. So we like to try keep that at bay if we possibly can. But just in general, when we're looking at candidates for condemnation, you're right. We're not actively going out and driving up and down and going, well, that looks like a bad one. We probably ought to tear that down. It's likely been in a housing case status for months, if not years, with us and has gone unresolved. And really, we're looking at things like failing foundations. There's things you can notice from the street that will give you clues. Porches that fall off, corners that are off edge, roofs that are collapsing, windows that have popped out from settling. If it's been boarded up for quite some time, if it has had a fire and it hasn't been properly repaired after a fire. So we'll see some of those that are condemnation considerations. But we're really looking for structural issues at that point, and that will tell us kind of what we're dealing with. Does that answer that?
Yeah.
If someone sees a property like that in their neighborhood or other issues like tall grass and weeds, how do they report that? Oh,
I'm glad you asked that too. We will take a complaint any way you can give it to us. Literally, we are a complaint-driven department. If a citizen wants to submit things online, they would need to go through MABCD's portal, which is on the Sedgwick County website. Now that most people go, what? You're a city department? Yeah, we are. But our complaint-based system is on MABCD's website, and it's at the portal. And that feeds directly into our case management system, which assigns things geographically to the inspector for the area. So it's slick and it's efficient. The other thing that it does is it gives citizens the opportunity. You can self-research after you report a complaint and see if it's got a case on it. You can see if it's pending court action. You can see if it's in bench warrant status. You can see the status of a case simply by putting in the address. Yeah. So it's pretty helpful. Now, the other thing, not everybody likes technology. They want to talk to somebody. So our main number is 660-9220, 316 area code. It's answered all day, every day. We'll take your complaint by phone and, again, assign it to the right inspector because in some way, shape, or form, that's going to have to feed into our case management system. So I have a trivia question for you.
All right.
Oh.
How many incoming phone calls do you think we took on that 9220 number last year?
For all of 2021, so we're post the initial COVID year.
I'm going to say 500,000.
That seems a little high.
Well, I get a lot of Facebook comments about tall grass and weeds, so I can't even imagine the calls you get.
I'm going to go with 32,000.
It's actually 24.
Oh.
Yeah, so we take in 24,000 calls. We have four folks who answer those frontline calls. That doesn't include the calls that go directly to inspectors because they work from cell phones when they're out in the field and that kind of thing. So it's underestimating what we actually deal with. But that's kind of a lot when you consider we're really not a call center environment.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, with as many residents as we have in Wichita, that seems pretty good. Like,
Yeah, it is. And like I said, that offsets that online complaint system will take in a ton as well. We're going to deal with about 10,000 cases of all types a year. We'll deal with 3,000 to 4,000 tall grass and weeds. We'll deal with 6,000 nuisance cases, a couple thousand housing. So when you're talking about just high visibility but low volume, it's condemnations. It's a very small volume of what we actually do, but it's one of the most visible. That public hearing piece just vaults it right into the public. It's very, very visible.
Yeah.
Well, I know the case that we had on Tuesday, it seemed like a really positive thing. We really helped that homeowner. I think it was a case where his family member had passed, and he was really working hard to try to figure out all the legalities. But like you said, that's a really complicated system, and your folks really helped him and walked him through it.
Yeah, it's expensive too.
Yeah.
If I had a wish list, it would probably be some type of a grant or matching program for funds to assist with probate.
Yeah.
That's about $3,000 every time you do it. I mean, we've heard that from multiple citizens. That's expensive, especially when you're facing a property that needs work, either demolition or boarding up or mowing or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of on my wish list of things to see if we can figure out a way to offer some financial assistance. I just don't have in my head yet how that would work or where we would get the money to do that. So, but hopefully we can.
Yeah.
But we've noticed that you guys, you do everything you can to help these homeowners.
We try.
Try to provide them resources.
We do. So one of the things, it's a little bit of a bunny trail, but that's a good segue to it. So one of the things I inherited, and I can't say enough about my predecessor, Deb Legg, who was brilliant to have this idea, but I actually have a social worker on my staff.
Oh,
and
wow.
So, she's our code enforcement liaison, and her sole job responsibilities are to help align people and resources, okay, to resolve problems, originally with the intent, and still with the intent, of alleviating the burden on court. Because there's some instances where you're going to take them to court. It's just not going to do any good.
Yeah.
They don't have the means or the physical ability or the mental capacity to do what needs to be done. And so we try to intervene before they ever even get to that point. And it may be someone whose backyard is overgrown and they don't have the ability to clean it up. So we have volunteers who will go do that, and we can provide maybe a dumpster and a lawnmower and weed eater, and they go in and they get it in ship shape, and then the homeowner can maintain it after that. So, or they need, a little bit of siding replaced on a shed, or they need a soffit worked on, or, small manageable projects that volunteers with expertise can do if we give them a little bit of equipment and a little bit of material. And so we do that. Now, demolition, which is kind of the focus of this conversation, is beyond the scope of volunteers.
Yeah.
We just can't. It's too much and too far gone at that point in time. But in many other cases, tall grass and weeds, nuisance, minor housing issues, we're able to help citizens with that.
That's really great.
Yeah. A lot of people don't even know we have that. It has to be a referral. You have to have an inspector refer. There has to be a problem that we can help resolve and keep out of court for that program to work. So it's not a y'all come kind of program.
Yeah.
We're going to refer you to that kind of program.
Yeah. That's awesome.
All right, we like to close these shows out with some dad jokes, so we know you've come prepared.
Oh, yes, I have.
So we'll let you kick us off.
All right. What's the difference between a security guard and a dog?
Oh, I don't know.
Don't know.
A security guard wears a uniform, and a dog just pants.
Very nice.
That was great. I love it. That's awesome. Oh, that's good. Did you have another one?
I do.
All right.
I do. Do people laugh in Hawaii, or is it just aloha?
That's awesome. Naomi on our team will love that one.
Yeah.
That's great. I love it.
Go ahead.
Okay. 2 wrongs don't make a right, but 2 rights make an airplane. That was just dumb.
Yeah.
I do have another one. It's been a while since we've had any jokes on this podcast about sitting on top of wet grass, so we're overdue.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. I've had other jokes with grass.
I've so got to use that with my tall grass and weeds.
I thought of you.
That's what I'm good. That's 100% going back to neighborhood inspection.
Yeah, I didn't come prepared with something related to the topic. This 2 weeks in a row now, but when I found out my toaster wasn't waterproof, I was shocked.
Oh, bad dad jokes. Bad dad jokes.
That's bad. That's
And then
bad.
I've got another one here. It's a 5-minute walk from my house to the bar, but it's a 45-minute walk from the bar to my house. The difference is staggering.
That's great. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So can we do one to honor Vin Scully?
Yeah.
That passed away
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Statistics are used much like a drunk uses a lamppost, not for illumination, but support.
Very nice.
Rest in peace, Vin. Yeah.
All right, Kaylin, thank you so much for
Oh, it's
coming on
my
the
pleasure.
show and helping us understand
Absolutely my
this
pleasure.
process. So,
Yeah.
and if you have any comments, questions, or have a topic you want us to discuss on the show, please feel free to email us at social@wichita.gov. And again, thanks for joining us.
You'll have to